Hey guys, I'm here to do another video. This one's going to be on API design. For real this time. I know last time I said I would do it and I didn't. This time we're actually going to do it, and we're just going to jump right in. I've loaded up the SeaCAT project in the solution. And the first thing we want to do for our API, which is how applications are going to communicate with the AI, is we need to add an interface, right? And our interface is going to be what other applications can use to interact with this code DLL. So what's the first interface we need? What's the first concept we need, basically, is how you want to think about it. Well, I think, personally, when it comes to interacting with an AI, I think the first part of it has to be a sense, right? Because you sense things. In my mind, the outputs of an AI, like the punches and stuff, are also senses, but they are like interactable senses in a way, if that makes sense. So with your eyes even, they'd be interactable. You'd be able to close your eyes, right? So that's how I'm looking at it, is you have senses that you can see, and you also have senses that you can interact with, right? But they are one and the same in a lot of ways. So we're going to create our sense, right? That has created it, and this has been checked out automatically, which is really nice. Now I want to close all this, and here we go. So we have our sense interface. And what is this for? This represents an input or output for the SeaCAT API, for the SeaCAT AI, right? So, in fact, I'll get rid of AI just for the SeaCAT. So, what does a sense have? Well, if we think about a sense, right, let's think back to the light switch test, right? The logic test, I guess it's called now. If we think back to that, each of those items was a sense, right? If we're calling them senses. We had the switch, which was a sense that was either on or off, and we had the bulb, which was either on or off, right? I'm calling the bulb a sense, even though it's projecting out from the AI, just because I am. There's no more reasoning to it than that. I'm just doing it, okay? So the first thing we need conceptually is a way to identify each sense, so that you can say this data came from this sense, this data came from that sense, right? Fair enough. So for that, we're going to use a GUID, and it's going to be the ID. A GUID is a guaranteed unique identifier or something, and this is the ID of the sense. Nice and simple. Now, what else do we need? I honestly don't think we need much at this point. However, what I am going to do is I'm going to give it maybe like a... Do I want to give it like... Let's think about this conceptually, right? Let's say it is a... Give me my bit. Fine, give me a byte. No, give me a bool. Right? Let's say we've got state, right? If we're just going at this from a purely light bulb perspective, it's not how it's going to end up, don't worry. We have this being the state of the sense, right? On or off. So that works for both the light bulb and the switch. So it's a really good starting point, right? Now, with this, it's fine because both of those just have one. But what about if we replace the switch with 8 switches, right? or even 2 switches, right? It could be as simple as that, right? There are a certain amount of switches that you can send to and from this thing, right? That is getting very... You could translate all data like that, but it's not going to be pretty for the user. You know, nobody's going to want to convert all their data into a bunch of booleans in an array to convert their data, right? To send it to the AI. It's just not going to happen. So we need a data type that anyone can use, right? So we could do a byte array, right? Most things can be serialized to byte arrays. Most classes anyway. So a byte array is totally fine. You can do that. The thing is, again, from a user interface perspective, the people using your API, do you really want them to have to convert everything they want to send to you into a byte array before they send it to you? Because that is going to be a pain in the ass for every developer, right? Every single one of them. They're going to be like, oh, great, we've got to convert it to a byte array before we send it. I know this because that's what I would think, right? So, we're going to do something a bit nicer. We're going to say D is our data type, right? You might be thinking D, but that's got a red squiggly line under it. That means we can't use D. But what we're going to do is we're going to make this a generic interface. And that means that when you create an instance of iSense, you can pass in a data type, right? Now that is pretty slick. And then whatever this state is for that instance of the generic. So this could be light switch, right? As an example, you could have like class light switch, right? And that would inherit off iSense bool, right? I think I would also need to go like bool maybe. How do you do this? Oh right, it wasn't complaining about that. I don't need to do that at all. It was complaining because I haven't... Go away properties window. Haven't implemented the interface. But now I have, right? And you can see that it's done public bool state. Because we passed in bool as the generic. So that's how these work, right? And that's fair enough. However, this is where it gets a bit dicey. Well, for one thing, I should really be documenting that. Which one of these would it be? That's the one. Type param name D is the type of data used by the sense, right? Now really here, we don't want each sense to only be sending one set of data, right? We could do... However, the way I'm going to do it, the way I've been running through this, is sense is just going to contain some default data, right? Default state, let's call it. Now, whenever we create a sense, we'll be able to specify what the default state is for that sense. So it might be like your eyes are closed, right? Or it might be your eyes are open and you see stuff. So it might just be complete blackness would be the default. And then it would be populated with images as they were seen. That's how you can imagine it. Or the default switch for the default state for the light bulb is off. And then you can send it a different one which is on. But you can at least track what the default is. I'm not sure what that's going to be useful for, but it might be useful for something. So we're going to keep it. And that's the very start of our API, right? it is a sense. A sense is all well and good. If it has a default state, it's fine. We also need another interface, which is going to be a bit more complex, called the data, right? So we need some data. Now, the data is, again, generic. Right? And it's going to have... This isn't the same... This doesn't have to be the same data type as the other one because it's generic. Every data you create can have a different data type. But a generic type, I guess. Here we're going to put... again, we're going to put where D is a class. Because we only want... Did we do that in the other one? I think we did. We didn't. Oh, I've jumped ahead of myself. Where D is a class, right? And what this says is whatever data type you're passing in, it has to be a class. And the reason I'm saying that is so that it's easier for me. Because classes, you can usually serialize, right? In some way. I may end up updating this so that it says that it has to be serializable, but right now I cannot quite recall how, so I'm not going to do it yet. But I think class is fair enough, I think, for my purposes. So again, we've got iData. This one, again, is going to have an ID, so we can do GUID ID. And it's also going to have a data packet, but this is going to be the actual data itself. So this is going to be the packet, right? So we will create data objects, or instances of the data object, to send through a sense. And there's a reason that we're making that distinction. But it gets into the database side that I will explain in another video. But for now, this is the packet of data to send to SeaCAT, right? And this is the ID of the data. This is a piece of data to send to SeaCAT. So I'm not tying this data to a sense, and I could do, but I really don't feel like I want to, for database reasons. So I'm going to keep them separate. And then, for the third one, I am going to add another interface. And this is going to represent a sense and some data combined, right? So it's going to be an action. I'm going to call it iAction. And this one is going to be generic again, right? But it's going to be doubly generic. So it's going to take a sense and it's going to take a data type, right? I'm going to say where S is a iSense of D, right? Is that going to complain? Type D must be a reference type in order to use it as a parameter D in the generic type or method iSense D. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Where D is is a class where S is a class. Is that right? Yeah, okay, so I have to put both limiters on there. That's fine. And this represents an action to send to SeaCAT. S is a type of sense, and D is a type of data. Because you could have multiple sensors sending the same type of data, basically, is what I was getting at earlier with the database malarkey. Like, you could have two switches, right? And they are defined separately so that we can have an action. And the action, again, it's going to have an ID, right? So that we can track it through the system. But it's also going to have a sense type. What am I doing? This is yeah, just the sense ID. Or just the sense even. Now I believe here I've made a mistake. I think this is supposed to be iSense D. Yeah? Okay, cool. So D is just a type of data, so it can be anything. S is a type of sense, and the sense has to be for that type of data, right? Not sure if that's easy to get your head around if you haven't seen generics before, but I'm going to leave it at that. So this is the sense that received the data, and D, data, the data that was received, right? So there we go. We have an action that contains a sense and it contains some data, right? Now we can imagine sending that to this AI and it being able to store that data from that sense somewhere, right? Doesn't matter where at the moment, but that's what the user needs to be thinking when they are using this API. They have to be thinking, right, I'm programming a switch to talk to this AI. That means I need to create a sense, and I need to give that sense some data. And then the AI will do something with it, right? And the light bulb guy has to be thinking the same thing, basically. But then how do they do it? That is the next question. And we're going to answer that with another interface. It's always an interface. And this is going to be called the iSense. I don't like the word manager. iSense provider. Right? And this is used for creating a sense, or used to request a sense from SeaCAT, right? So you don't create a sense, you ask for a sense. That keeps it nice and neat. So the iSense provider has iSense D, right? It's going to return a sense of a data type, and it's going to be create sense, and you're going to pass in a data type where D is a class, right? I don't need that, it's an interface. But you're also going to pass in the default data, right, for the sense. It shouldn't be create sense, it should be request sense. Request a sense from SeaCAT. The type of data data the sense handles and the default data for the sense. Right? And that is going to return an interface to the sense. That's basically what it's going to return. Now I do wonder how I should differentiate between inputs and outputs at this point. Do I want to specify it? Do I want to specify it? I think I do. I think I'll have an enum. So let's create it. Let's create the enum. Add class. You know what? Whatever. Interface. It doesn't actually matter what you pick there. And this can be called sense type. Sense function. Sense root. Sense type. Let's go with sense type. Right. The type of a sense. Input. Output. Is that not how you do an interface? Oh, it's not an interface I want, it's an enum. There we go. Now we have our enum. We can also make our sense have a sense type. Yeah, sense type. You find yourself doing that a lot in coding when you start getting the names down for your interfaces and your enums. You end up just calling them basically what they are. The type of sense this is. I know that's a bit weird. It's not the best. I might rename that later. But for now, input output, brilliant. And so what do we pass in? We're going to pass in the iSense. I think we are. Yeah. eSense type. Right. So you're going to be able to request a sense. You're going to be able to provide a default data type that can be any class. And you're going to provide whether it's an input or an output. Right. I'm going to add the documentation here. The type of sense this is. I know this documentation seems useless, but believe me, in the long run it's worth it. So now, if you have a sense provider, you can create that sense, but you can't send data back, right? You can't do it. So we need to add a new class. And that is going to be iSense data sender. Yeah, that's reasonable. Used to send data to SeaCAT. Right. And here we're gonna do let's see. Get shoot. What is the data sender going to do? It's going to have a bool for now, and it's going to send data, right? That's pretty basic. It doesn't even need data in there really, it just needs send. And you're going to send a sense type D. Sense. And you're going to send D. God damn it. D. Data. Right? Where D is a class. Yeah. Happy now? No? Do I need to do this? I think I do. So you're sending a sense. And you're sending some data. That's fine. I can live with that. I could super nerd it up and do like S, D, S, D, where S, I sense D, right? That is just me being a smart ass though. Possibly making the interface harder to use. Is there any purpose to doing that? I'm trying to think. If there is, I'll keep it. If there isn't, and it's just me being a smartass, I'll take it back out. I don't want to hurt the AI, the API even. The AI API. If I do that, it means you can pass in any type into the iSense that inherits off iSense D. Right? And it is generic, which is nice because it means doesn't really mean much, does it? Not really. I'm going to take it out for now and I'll add it back if it seems like it makes sense. I think that is more reasonable in all honesty. I think it's easier to understand. Because you pass in your sense, and you also pass in the data for that sense. Send some data to SeaCAT. The type of data to send. The sense to send the data on. The data to send. Returns. Shoot. True if the data sends, false otherwise. And there we have it. We have a data sender and we have a sense provider. In the sense provider, we also want to be able to go iSense D retrieve sense. Right? And that is going to take a GUID, which is the sense ID. And you'll also have to pass in the data type, where D is a class. So you're saying, I've got the sense ID, I know the sense has this data type, give me my frickin' sense, right? That's reasonable. I think that's fair. Retrieve a sense from SeaCAT. I know retrieve and request. Maybe request a new sense. Request a new sense. Retrieve a sense. The type of data the sense represents. That kind of rhymed quite nice. The type of data the sense represents. And the ID of the sense. Right? And it returns What does it return? It returns the sense. I guess it returns an interface to the sense. Let's keep it moral. And at that point, I think we're good, right? In terms of creating a sense and sending the data. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it for this video. We will check this in. Added sense input output. And we will not worry about that because I'm feeling lazy. I'll do all that later in my downtime. Which changes are excluded? Yeah, okay, fair enough. No testing done, so we're just gonna check this one in. You can see me slacking already on my standards, but it's a minor change, so it's fine. You can see here, if I go and compare this project, you should see, have I not saved it yet? You should see that it's added all the new files to this project. So you can actually see that here. Not the most interesting of things to see, but it's worth showing. And then it's just added all these new files. So I'm pretty happy with that as a starting kind of API majig. We'll obviously have to do the stuff for retrieving data from a sense. Maybe not actually, because you can just get it from the sense provider and then I need to think of a way to uptick it. In here I might be like maybe get sense updates, which will like query all the senses that have been done so far. But I'm not sure. For now we're gonna check it in and I'm gonna ponder that some more. For now though, I think this video is done. I know it's pure coding, people might not be interested in it, but I think the creation of an API is quite important, and while I'm not sure how well I did it, because coding and talking about coding, wow, that is some next level difficulty. I'll put this up and see whether anyone watches it, see what people think, and go from there. If people think it's weird, I might not upload all my coding. I might code first and then like do an upload summary of the coding. That might work better. It depends. I'll see if anyone comments. If they don't, I'll probably start doing that. I'll probably start doing summaries of the coding because it is quite difficult. But maybe that's just because it's the first time I'm doing it. Maybe it takes time to get to grips with. Anyway, for now, peace out, guys.